The day had arrived, the day she had been dreaming about for as long as she could remember. The music hall loomed large, its tall doors and polished floors reflecting the excitement and fear swirling inside her. She had practiced for countless hours, her fingers dancing across the keys late into the night, her eyes sometimes stinging with tears from frustration and exhaustion. Today, she would play in front of a maestro who had the reputation of being one of the most brilliant, but also one of the harshest in the world of classical music. The thought of him watching her every move made her stomach tighten, but it also ignited a determination she had never felt before. As she stepped into the hall, the air felt heavier than usual, thick with the quiet murmurs of other performers and the distant sound of tuning pianos. The wooden floorboards creaked slightly under her shoes as she made her way to the stage. She paused for a moment, taking in the grandeur around her. The high ceiling, the shimmering chandeliers, the velvet curtains framing the stage. It was both beautiful and intimidating. She took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves, and reminded herself of the hours of practice, the sacrifices, and the endless repetitions that had brought her here. The maestro sat in the front row, his sharp eyes fixed on her. He exuded an aura of authority, his posture straight, his expression unreadable. She felt a wave of anxiety wash over her, and for a moment, she wondered if she was ready for this. But then she felt a spark of courage. She had faced challenges before, small and large, and she had never let them stop her. This was no different. She walked confidently to the piano, the polished surface reflecting her own image back at her. Her hands hovered over the keys for a moment, remembering every note, every phrase, every emotion she wanted to convey. As she began to play, the music filled the hall, delicate at first, then stronger, richer, as she poured herself into the performance. Her fingers moved with a fluidity that came from years of practice, and for a few moments, she felt a sense of freedom, a sense of connection with the music that made everything else fade away. The notes flowed effortlessly, and she could almost forget the maestro watching her so critically. But then it happened. A small mistake, a slip of a finger, a note slightly off. The maestro's hand shot up, stopping her mid-piece. His voice, firm and cutting, echoed through the hall. He criticized her technique, her timing, and even her posture. The words stung sharply, cutting through the music like a knife. She froze, her hands hovering over the keys, unsure of what to do next. The audience was silent, the air thick with tension, and she felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment. It was as if every eye was on her, waiting for her to fail. Her heart raced, and for a moment, she felt like giving up. She wanted to run from the stage, to hide from the humiliation. But deep down, she knew she couldn't. She had worked too hard, sacrificed too much, and she wasn't about to let one harsh critique define her. She took a slow, steadying breath, trying to calm the storm inside her. She reminded herself why she had started playing the piano in the first place. The love of music, the joy of expressing herself through the keys, the way a melody could tell a story words never could. She began again, slowly at first, carefully placing each note, letting the music guide her. She could feel the tension in the hall, the maestro watching, but she refused to let it control her. With each passing measure, her confidence grew, her fingers moving more freely, more assuredly. The music began to soar, filling the space with emotion and passion. She played not to impress, but to express, to share a piece of herself through the music. The audience began to respond, leaning forward in their seats, captivated by the transformation. The tension that had hung over the hall like a dark cloud started to lift, replaced by a sense of admiration and wonder. She could feel the connection between her and the listeners, the way the music could move people, touch them in ways words never could. It was exhilarating, and it reminded her why she had chosen this path, despite the challenges and the criticism. The maestro's expression remained serious, but there was a flicker of something else in his eyes. A recognition, perhaps, of her talent, her determination, her ability to rise above the humiliation and continue playing with grace and passion. She didn't need his approval, not really. The music itself was validation enough. a testament to her hard work and dedication. As she finished the piece, the last notes hanging in the air, the hall was silent for a moment, as if everyone was holding their breath, unsure of what would come next. Then, slowly, applause began to fill the space, growing louder and louder, a wave of sound that washed over her, lifting her spirits and filling her with a sense of accomplishment. She smiled, a genuine smile that came from the heart, feeling proud of herself not just for playing well, but for standing strong in the face of criticism. She stepped back from the piano, her hands trembling slightly, not from fear, but from the intensity of the experience. The maestro nodded once, a small gesture, but it carried weight. It wasn't praise, not exactly, but it was acknowledgement, a silent recognition that she had not been defeated by his words. She felt a sense of quiet triumph, a validation that came not from external approval, but from knowing she had faced the challenge and emerged stronger. As she left the stage, she could feel the eyes of the audience on her, some filled with admiration, some with curiosity, all touched by the courage and resilience she had displayed. She walked down the aisle, her steps light, her heart still racing, but with a sense of purpose and determination that had only grown stronger. The experience had been humbling, yes, but it had also been empowering, a reminder that true growth often came from facing difficulty and learning to rise above it. Backstage, friends and mentors waited, offering words of encouragement and praise. They could see the mix of emotions on her face, relief, pride, lingering anxiety, but they also saw the spark that had carried her through. She knew that this was only the beginning, that there would be more challenges ahead, more moments of doubt and criticism. But she also knew that she had the strength to face them, to continue growing, and to keep playing the music that defined her. That night, as she walked home under the soft glow of streetlights, the sounds of the city around her, she replayed the performance in her mind. She remembered the mistake, the harsh words, the moment of freezing terror, but she also remembered the music, the feeling of fingers dancing across the keys, the connection with the audience, and the quiet nod of acknowledgement from the maestro. It was a mixture of pain and triumph, humiliation and pride, fear and courage. A complex, human experience that she would carry with her, learning from it, growing from it, and letting it fuel her journey forward. She thought about the hours of practice that had brought her here, the sacrifices she and her family had made, the late nights and early mornings, the moments of doubt and frustration. Every challenge, every tear, every note had led to this moment of resilience. She realized that this was what it meant to be a musician, to face not only the technical demands of the piano but also the emotional journey that came with performing, with sharing oneself with the world, with standing tall in the face of criticism. The experience had taught her something invaluable. That failure, or the fear of it, was not something to be ashamed of, but something to be confronted, learned from, and overcome. She had faced humiliation in its most public form, yet she had continued, she had persevered, and she had emerged stronger, more confident, and more determined than ever. And as she looked toward the future, she knew that this was just the first of many such moments, each one an opportunity to grow, to challenge herself, and to continue sharing her love of music with the world. After the audition, she walked away from the music hall, her steps slow and heavy. The cool evening air brushed against her face, but it did little to ease the storm inside her. The words of the maestro replayed in her mind, each one sharp, each one cutting deeper than she expected. He had called out her mistakes in front of the audience, pointed to flaws she had worked so hard to overcome, and for a moment, she felt smaller than she ever had. The embarrassment lingered, a heavy weight on her shoulders, and she wondered if she had let herself down. She found a quiet park on her way home, sitting on a bench beneath the dim glow of a street lamp. The world around her continued in its usual rhythm. People walking dogs, couples holding hands, children laughing, but none of it could reach her. Her mind was filled with the echo of criticism, the image of the maestro's stern face, and the silence of the hall after she had paused in shock. She closed her eyes and let herself feel the disappointment, letting it wash over her without judgment. It was painful, yes, but it was real, and she needed to face it to move forward. She thought back to the long months of preparation that had led her here, the countless hours spent at the piano, practicing scales and finger exercises until her fingers ached, the evenings where she had stayed up late, perfecting the hardest passages of her piece, refusing to give in to fatigue, the sacrifices she had made, missing out on outings with friends, skipping birthdays, all for this one chance. And yet, despite all her effort, one small mistake had caused public humiliation. She felt the sting of injustice, wondering if it was fair that someone could see only her error and not her dedication. Tears finally slipped down her cheeks, but she welcomed them. They were a release, a cleansing of the tension that had built up inside her. She sat there in silence, letting the emotions flow, until they gradually softened into determination. She reminded herself that everyone made mistakes, even the most accomplished musicians. The maestro himself had struggled with the same piece, a fact she had learned from stories and interviews. If he could fail at it, then her error was not a sign of weakness but a challenge to overcome. This thought sparked something inside her, a quiet fire that pushed her forward. She returned home that night and immediately went to her piano. The familiar feel of the keys beneath her fingers brought a sense of comfort. She began to play slowly, carefully, revisiting the sections where she had faltered. She repeated each phrase over and over, paying close attention to every detail. Her hands ached, her mind wandered at times, but she kept going. She was determined to understand what had gone wrong, to learn from it, and to make it right. Each note she played felt like a step toward reclaiming her confidence. Her mentor noticed the change in her the next day. They sat together in the small studio, the afternoon light filtering through the curtains. Her mentor listened quietly as she recounted the events of the audition, the criticism, the embarrassment, and the lingering fear. There was no judgment, only understanding and encouragement. Every great musician faces setbacks, her mentor said softly. What matters is how you respond. You have talent, but more importantly, you have heart. Let that guide you. With those words in mind, she began a new approach to her practice. She didn't just focus on technique. She focused on expression, on emotion, on telling a story through her music. She experimented with dynamics, timing, and phrasing, allowing herself to explore the piece in ways she hadn't before. The music began to feel alive in her hands, a reflection of her own journey, her own struggles and triumphs. Each session left her exhausted but fulfilled, her confidence growing steadily. She also sought out other performances, small gatherings where she could play in front of supportive audiences. Each recital, each informal performance, helped her rebuild her courage. She learned to manage the nerves that had once overwhelmed her, to focus on the joy of playing rather than the fear of judgment. The applause and smiles from listeners reminded her that music had the power to connect people, to inspire and move them, and that was far more important than any critique. One evening, as she practiced the challenging section that had caused her trouble, she paused and reflected on the maestro. He had shamed her in public, yes, but he had also set a standard, a challenge that pushed her beyond her comfort zone. She realized that his harshness, while painful, had forced her to confront her weaknesses and grow stronger. The thought didn't erase the hurt, but it gave it meaning, a sense that even negative experiences could be transformed into motivation. Her parents watched from the doorway, offering quiet support. They had always believed in her, but now they saw her resilience in action. They watched as she played with intensity and emotion, as she navigated the difficult passages that had once intimidated her. There was pride in their eyes, but also awe at the determination their child displayed. They knew this journey was shaping her not just as a musician, but as a person, teaching lessons in perseverance, courage, and self-belief. Days turned into weeks, and her practice continued without pause. She documented her progress, marking the improvements, noting the moments where she felt connected to the music, and reflecting on the parts that still challenged her. She discovered a rhythm to her days, balancing schoolwork, practice, and rest. Each evening, she would play for hours, not just to perfect the piece, but to immerse herself in it, to understand its nuances and make it her own. She also found solace in journaling, writing down her thoughts, frustrations, and small victories. The act of putting her experiences into words helped her process the emotions that had once felt overwhelming. She realized that her journey was not just about mastering a piece of music, but about understanding herself, her limits, her strengths, and the power of resilience. Each entry in her journal became a reminder of how far she had come, a testament to her dedication and courage. At night, she would replay the audition in her mind, but this time with a different perspective. She remembered the fear and the embarrassment, but she also remembered the moments when she had continued to play despite it, the moments when she had felt the music flow through her. She began to see the experience not as a failure, but as a turning point, a challenge that had forced her to grow in ways she never imagined. It became a story of resilience, one that she could carry forward, not with shame, but with pride. Her friends, too, played a role in her recovery. They offered encouragement, celebrated her small victories, and reminded her of her talent when doubt crept in. They listened patiently to her recount the audition, never dismissing her feelings, but also helping her see beyond them. Through their support, she realized that failure was not something to face alone, and that seeking help and sharing experiences could strengthen her resolve. One day, she decided to play the piece in front of a small, informal audience at her music school. Her hands trembled at first, but as the first notes flowed, she felt the familiar connection with the music return. She navigated the difficult passages with precision and emotion, her confidence growing with each measure. The audience responded with warmth and encouragement, and she felt a sense of accomplishment that went beyond the applause. It was a personal victory, a testament to her dedication and growth. She reflected on how much she had learned in just a few weeks. She had learned to face criticism without being crushed by it, to transform humiliation into motivation, and to embrace the challenges that came her way. She had discovered the strength of her own spirit, the importance of perseverance, and the joy that came from truly connecting with music. Each day of practice, each small performance, each moment of reflection added to her understanding of herself and her craft. As she prepared for her next public performance, she felt a mixture of nerves and excitement. The memory of the maestro's criticism still lingered, but it no longer held power over her. She had faced it, processed it, and grown from it. She felt ready to share her music with the world, confident in her ability to rise above challenges and to express herself fully through her art. She knew the journey was far from over, but she also knew that she had the resilience and determination to continue, to keep playing, and to keep growing as a musician and as a person. The weeks passed, and each day brought new insights, new challenges, and new opportunities to practice and perform. She embraced them all, finding strength in her dedication, joy in her progress, and pride in her perseverance. The humiliation of the audition became a distant memory, transformed into a lesson and a source of motivation. She had learned that success was not just about talent, but about courage, determination, and the willingness to keep going, no matter how difficult the path. Through it all, she never lost sight of why she played music in the first place. It was not for fame, recognition, or approval. It was for the love of the art, the joy of expression, and the connection it brought with others. Each note she played, each performance she gave, was a celebration of that love, a testament to her resilience, and a reflection of her growth. And as she looked toward the future, she knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, she had the strength, courage, and passion to face them head-on. She had spent weeks recovering from the humiliation, but now the real challenge began. The piece that had caused her so much trouble lingered in her mind like a shadow, daring her to conquer it. She knew she could not simply play it the way everyone expected. She needed to understand it, to feel it in every fiber of her being, and to make it her own. The memory of the maestro's sharp criticism fueled her determination, reminding her that she had something to prove, not to him, but to herself. Her days became a rhythm of practice and reflection. She woke early in the morning, her fingers stretching over the piano keys, repeating difficult passages until they became fluid. The section that had once seemed impossible now demanded her full attention, and she approached it with patience and persistence. She learned to listen not just to the notes, but to the music itself, letting it guide her fingers and her emotions. Each session left her both exhausted and exhilarated, the challenge invigorating her rather than intimidate. Her mentor continued to guide her, offering advice on technique and expression. They focused not only on the mechanics of the piece but also on the story it told. They discussed how every pause, every crescendo, every delicate note carried meaning. She realized that the music was not just a test of skill but a vehicle for emotion, a way to communicate without words. This understanding transformed the way she approached the piano. She was no longer playing to avoid mistakes. She was playing to tell a story, to share her own journey through the music. The teen also sought inspiration from other musicians. She watched videos of renowned pianists, studied their techniques, and noted how they expressed emotion through timing, dynamics, and subtle changes in touch. She learned from their successes and mistakes, absorbing what could help her grow. She did not try to imitate them exactly, but she allowed their artistry to expand her own vision of what her performance could be. The process was humbling and enlightening, showing her that mastery was a lifelong pursuit. Meanwhile, news of her auditions spread quietly among the music community. Some were curious, some skeptical, and others sympathetic. The story of her public humiliation and determination to overcome it began to circulate, adding a subtle pressure. She knew that people were watching, anticipating her next performance, but she tried not to let it distract her. Instead, she focused on her preparation, channeling any anxiety into energy for the piano. One afternoon, she decided to confront the part of the piece that had been the maestro's own stumbling block. She played the passage slowly, deliberately, analyzing every note, every transition. It was complex and demanding, requiring both technical skill and emotional depth. At first, her hands faltered, but she persisted, repeating the section over and over until it became natural. Gradually, the passage transformed from a source of fear into a highlight of her interpretation, a moment where she could shine. Her family watched her progress with a mixture of pride and awe. They had supported her from the beginning, and now they could see the results of her determination. They noticed the subtle changes in her demeanor, her growing confidence, her calm focus, and the way she spoke about the music with passion and insight. They understood that this journey was shaping her not just as a pianist but as a person, teaching resilience, patience, and the courage to face challenges head-on. Friends, too, played a role in her journey. They attended small recitals, offering encouragement and celebrating each milestone. Their presence reminded her that she was not alone in her struggle and that support could be found in those who cared. Sharing her music with others, even in informal settings, helped her refine her expression and gain confidence. Each positive response reinforced her belief in her abilities and reminded her of the joy of connecting with an audience. As the days passed, she began to imagine a larger stage, a performance where she could fully demonstrate her growth. The thought of facing an audience, possibly even the maestro again, filled her with a mixture of excitement and nerves. But this time, the fear was different. It was not paralyzing. It was motivating. She understood that performing was not about avoiding mistakes, but about expressing herself fully, embracing the challenge, and allowing the music to speak through her. She experimented with interpretation, exploring ways to make the piece resonate with her own experiences. She discovered moments of subtle tension, moments of delicate beauty, and moments of dramatic intensity. Each choice she made added depth and authenticity to her performance. She realized that mastery was not only about technical perfection but also about emotional truth, and that truth could captivate listeners more than flawless execution alone. One evening, she decided to perform the piece for a small group of peers in a private room. Her hands shook slightly as she began, but as the music unfolded, she felt a sense of flow and connection. The passage that had once caused her so much fear now became a highlight, executed with confidence and emotion. The listeners were captivated, and their quiet admiration gave her a sense of validation she had longed for. This experience reinforced her belief in her abilities and gave her courage to face even larger challenges. Her preparation became more rigorous as she set her sights on a public performance. She created a schedule balancing practice, rest, and reflection. Each day, She focused on specific goals, whether mastering a passage, refining dynamics, or deepening her interpretation. She tracked her progress, noting improvements and areas that still needed attention. The discipline required was intense, but she embraced it, knowing that it was necessary for growth. During this time, she also learned to manage her emotions. She practiced mindfulness, taking moments to breathe deeply and center herself before playing. She acknowledged feelings of anxiety and doubt without letting them control her. This emotional awareness allowed her to approach the piano with clarity and focus, transforming fear into energy and concentration. The teen also faced moments of frustration. Despite her progress, there were days when passages refused to cooperate, when her fingers seemed clumsy, and when mistakes felt like setbacks. But each time, she reminded herself that struggle was part of the journey. She approached each challenge with patience, repeating sections until they became fluid, learning from every misstep. Slowly, her confidence grew not because she never failed, but because she learned to rise every time she did. She began to imagine the moment of triumph, the day when she would finally play the piece flawlessly, including the part that had defeated even the maestro. This vision became a source of motivation, guiding her through long hours of practice. She envisioned the pride she would feel, the satisfaction of overcoming her fears, and the joy of sharing her music with an audience. The thought of transforming her previous humiliation into a moment of personal victory fueled her determination. Her mentor noticed the change in her approach and praised her growth. "You are no longer just practicing notes," the mentor said. "You are shaping music with your heart. That is what makes a true musician." These words reinforced her sense of purpose, encouraging her to continue exploring, experimenting, and refining her performance. She understood that the journey was as important as the destination, that every effort, every moment of struggle, contributed to her development. As the day of her next recital approached, anticipation and excitement mingled with a lingering nervousness. She reviewed the piece meticulously, practicing transitions, dynamics, and emotional phrasing. She imagined the audience's reactions, the way the music would move through the hall, and the satisfaction of finally conquering the challenging section. She felt a deep connection with the piece, a sense of ownership and authenticity that had been missing before. She also reflected on her journey, recognizing how far she had come. From the initial humiliation in the audition to the weeks of practice, reflection, and small performances, she had transformed not only her technical skill, but also her understanding of music and herself. She realized that the maestro's criticism, though painful, had served as a catalyst for growth. It had forced her to confront her weaknesses, push beyond her comfort zone, and discover the strength she didn't know she possessed. On the eve of her recital, she sat at her piano, playing the piece one last time. Her fingers moved with confidence, her expression calm and focused. The passage that had once intimidated her now felt like a triumph, executed with precision and emotion. She paused at the end, feeling a mixture of satisfaction and anticipation. She knew that the performance ahead would be a true test, but she also knew that she was ready. She had prepared not only technically but emotionally, and she was determined to give her best. That night, she went to bed with a sense of calm and resolve. She reflected on her journey, the challenges she had faced, and the lessons she had learned. She felt proud of her resilience, her dedication, and her growth. The next day would bring the opportunity to share her music with a wider audience, to demonstrate the transformation that had taken place, and to take one more step toward mastering the piece that had once seemed insurmountable. She fell asleep with a sense of purpose and excitement, ready to face whatever awaited her on stage. The day of the recital arrived, and the music hall seemed even grander than she remembered. The chandeliers sparkled above, the polished floors reflected her nervous movements, and the audience slowly filled the seats. She could feel her heart pounding, a mixture of excitement and anxiety coursing through her. Today was the moment she had been preparing for, the moment when all her practice, determination, and resilience would be tested. Backstage, she took a few deep breaths, centering herself. She ran her fingers lightly over the piano keys one last time, feeling their smooth surface beneath her fingertips. The hours of preparation flashed through her mind. The late nights, the repeated passages, the small victories, and the moments of doubt she had overcome. She reminded herself that she was ready. This performance was not about proving anything to anyone else. It was about expressing herself, sharing her music, and embracing the challenge that had once felt insurmountable. The audience's murmurs grew quieter as the recital began. Other performers took the stage, each playing their pieces with skill and passion. She watched, learning from their confidence and focus, taking mental notes about stage presence and connection with the listeners. And then, finally, it was her turn. She walked to the piano, her steps measured and deliberate. The spotlight highlighted her as she approached the instrument, and for a brief moment, the world outside the hall disappeared. There was only her, the piano, and the music. As she placed her hands on the keys and began to play, a hush fell over the audience. The first notes were soft and tentative, but soon grew in confidence and strength. She felt the music flow through her, each note carrying emotion and intention. The challenging sections that had once caused her fear now became opportunities to showcase her mastery, executed with precision, expression, and depth. Her fingers moved fluidly across the keys, guided not only by technique, but also by the passion she poured into each phrase. The passage that had humiliated her in the audition approached. Her breath caught slightly, a flash of memory stirring in her mind. But this time she did not hesitate. She remembered the countless hours of practice, the guidance of her mentor, and the encouragement of friends and family. She let the music guide her, trusting in her preparation. The notes flowed smoothly, each one landing exactly as intended. The audience leaned forward, captivated by the transformation and intensity of her performance. The tension in the hall was palpable, but she remained focused, absorbed in the story the music was telling. Her expression reflected the emotions embedded in the piece. The struggle, the triumph, the beauty, and the vulnerability. She realized that the music was no longer just a technical challenge. It was a reflection of her journey. Each chord, each melody, each pause carried the weight of her experiences, and she felt a profound connection with every note she played. The music became a conversation between her and the audience, a dialogue of feelings and understanding that transcended words. She could feel the energy of the audience as it responded to her performance. Some faces were filled with awe, some with admiration, and some with tears, moved by the depth and authenticity of her playing. The applause that had once felt distant now seemed close, tangible, and she drew strength from it. It was not about seeking approval. It was about sharing a piece of herself and the story of perseverance that had led her to this moment. In the audience, the maestro watched silently. His stern expression softened slightly as he followed the progression of the piece. The section that had defeated him years ago arrived, and she executed it flawlessly, her fingers moving with confidence and expression that seemed to breathe life into the music. For the first time, he allowed himself to feel impressed, acknowledging her skill and determination without a word. The performance was a revelation, a demonstration of growth, courage, and mastery. She continued through the remainder of the piece, each note resonating with clarity and emotion. The hall seemed to vibrate with the music, the audience entirely absorbed in the performance. Her heart swelled with a mixture of joy, relief, and pride. She realized that the journey she had taken, the struggles, the tears, the relentless practice, had all led to this moment. Every obstacle had shaped her, and every challenge had strengthened her. As the final notes faded into silence, the hall remained still for a heartbeat, as if holding its breath. Then, slowly, the applause began, soft at first, then growing into a wave of sound that filled the space. People stood, clapping and cheering, some even whistling in appreciation. The teen felt a surge of emotion, a mix of validation and gratitude. She had faced the piece that had once intimidated her and had emerged victorious, not only in skill but in confidence and expression. She stood, taking a small bow, her hands trembling slightly from the intensity of the performance. Her eyes scanned the audience, noting the smiles, the tears, and the looks of admiration. It was a moment of connection, a recognition of the power of music to move people. She felt the presence of everyone who had supported her. Her family, her mentor, her friends, even if they were not physically there at that exact moment. Their belief in her had carried her through, and now she could share the fruits of that support with the world. After leaving the stage, she received words of praise and encouragement from peers and teachers. They spoke of the emotional depth of her performance, the technical precision, and the courage it took to perform so publicly after a previous setback. Their recognition was gratifying, but what mattered most to her was the personal triumph she had achieved. She had faced her fears, embraced the challenge, and expressed herself fully through the music. The maestro approached her quietly after the recital. He did not offer harsh critique or judgment, but rather a nod and a few words of acknowledgement. "You have grown," he said simply. It was brief, but it carried weight. It was not praise born of obligation, but recognition earned through perseverance and talent. She felt a sense of closure, a resolution to the humiliation she had experienced months before. The experience had transformed from a source of fear into a symbol of triumph. Later that evening, she reflected on the performance, replaying it in her mind. She remembered the initial nervousness, the careful execution of difficult passages, and the powerful connection she had felt with the music and audience. She recognized how far she had come since the audition, how much she had grown technically, emotionally, and mentally. The journey had been difficult, filled with doubt and struggle, but it had been worth every effort. She also thought about the lessons she had learned. She had discovered the importance of resilience, patience, and perseverance. She had learned to transform criticism into motivation, to embrace challenges as opportunities for growth, and to trust in her abilities. She understood that setbacks were not the end, but rather steps on the path to improvement and mastery. These lessons extended beyond music, shaping her character and perspective in profound ways. In the following days, the impact of her performance became clear. Friends, family, and mentors continued to express admiration for her courage and skill. Word of her triumph spread quietly through the music community, inspiring others who had faced setbacks and self-doubt. Her story became an example of perseverance, demonstrating that dedication, passion, and resilience could overcome even the most daunting challenges. She returned to her piano with renewed enthusiasm, not just to prepare for future performances, but to continue exploring the depths of her art. She experimented with new pieces, refined her technique, and delved deeper into expression and interpretation. The experience had expanded her understanding of music and herself, showing her that growth was a continuous journey and that every performance was an opportunity to learn and connect. Her confidence had been strengthened, not by external validation alone, but by the knowledge that she could face fear, overcome challenges, and express herself authentically. She realized that the true measure of success was not perfection, but courage, the willingness to step onto the stage, confront difficulty, and share her music fully and honestly. As she reflected on her journey, she felt a sense of gratitude for every experience, even the humiliating moments. They had taught her resilience, fueled her determination, and shaped her into a stronger musician and person. The recital had been more than a performance. It had been a turning point, a testament to growth, and a celebration of her unwavering commitment to her craft. She knew that challenges would continue to arise, that there would be more difficult pieces, critical eyes, and moments of doubt. But she also knew that she was capable of facing them. She had discovered the power of persistence, the importance of self-belief, and the joy of expressing herself through music. And as she looked toward the future, she carried with her the confidence that she could overcome obstacles, embrace opportunities, and continue to grow as both a musician and a person. The applause from the recital still echoed in her mind days later. She could replay the performance over and over, feeling the rush of emotions as clearly as if it were happening again. The standing ovation, the looks of admiration in the audience, and even the quiet nod from the maestro, all of it left her with a profound sense of accomplishment. She had not only played the piece she had struggled with, but she had made it her own, transforming it from a source of fear into a statement of her ability and resilience. Life slowly returned to normal, but she was changed. Each day brought small reminders of her journey and the lessons it had taught her. In school, friends approached her with curiosity, wanting to know what had happened during the recital and how she had managed to overcome the pressure. She shared bits of her experience with them, careful not to boast but wanting them to understand that perseverance and dedication could carry someone through even the most intimidating challenges. Her story inspired those around her, showing them that mistakes did not define a person, but how they responded to them did. Her family continued to be her foundation. They celebrated her achievements without making her feel that the success was the only measure of her worth. They encouraged her to keep exploring, keep practicing, and keep embracing the music she loved. Their support reminded her that while applause and recognition were gratifying, the real fulfillment came from the joy of playing and the sense of growth that each challenge brought. This understanding deepened her connection with music, reinforcing the passion that had driven her from the very beginning. She returned to her daily practice with renewed purpose. The challenging piece that had once intimidated her became a source of pride, a reminder that she could overcome obstacles with focus and resilience. She began exploring new pieces, each one presenting a different kind of challenge. The process of learning and mastering new music became an adventure, a way to test her skills, patience, and creativity. She approached each piece with the same dedication she had shown in preparing for the recital, understanding that the journey of improvement was ongoing and never truly complete. In her reflections, she realized how much the experience had shaped her as a person, not just as a pianist. She had faced public humiliation, moments of self-doubt, and intense pressure, yet she had emerged stronger, more confident, and more self-aware. She had learned to embrace criticism as a tool for growth, to transform fear into motivation, and to trust in her own abilities. These lessons extended far beyond the piano, influencing how she approached challenges in all areas of her life. Her mentor continued to guide her, helping her refine her technique and expression while encouraging her to explore new creative directions. They emphasized that mastery was not a destination but a continuous journey of learning and discovery. With each session, she grew not only as a musician but as a thoughtful, disciplined, and expressive individual. The mentor's guidance reinforced the importance of dedication, humility, and passion in pursuing excellence. She also began performing in more formal settings, gradually expanding her audience. Each recital presented new opportunities to challenge herself, connect with listeners, and share her love of music. The experience of performing became a cycle of growth. Each performance brought new lessons, strengthened her confidence, and deepened her understanding of expression. The nervousness that once had paralyzed her transformed into a source of energy, fueling her focus and enhancing her performances. The story of her triumph spread quietly within the music community, inspiring other young musicians. Teachers and students alike saw her journey as an example of what could be achieved through perseverance, patience, and resilience. She received invitations to perform at schools, music clubs, and small festivals, each offering a chance to share her story through music. With every performance, she carried the memory of her challenges and the determination that had allowed her to overcome them. She also began to mentor younger students who were learning the piano, sharing insights from her own experiences. She emphasized the importance of practice, patience, and self-belief, and she encouraged them to embrace challenges rather than fear them. Watching others grow under her guidance brought her a new kind of satisfaction, one that went beyond applause and recognition. It was a reminder that success was not just personal, but also about inspiring and supporting others on their journey. The maestro's presence continued to be a quiet influence in her life. Though he had initially shamed her publicly, his acknowledgement during the recital carried weight and a subtle lesson. The highest standards, when met, brought recognition. She reflected on his role in her journey not as a villain, but as someone whose expectations challenged her to grow. The experience had taught her that not all criticism was destructive, and that even difficult encounters could be transformed into opportunities for learning and improvement. As she continued to perform and practice, she noticed subtle changes in herself. Her posture was more confident, her approach to challenges more measured, and her understanding of music deeper. She had developed a resilience that extended beyond the piano, a way of facing difficulties in life with courage and determination. She had learned that mistakes were not permanent failures but temporary setbacks that offered lessons if approached with the right mindset. Her connection with music deepened, moving beyond the mechanics of notes and rhythms to the emotional and expressive power that music could convey. She discovered that playing was not just about perfection, but about communication, about connecting with the audience and sharing a piece of herself through every note. This realization brought a sense of freedom and creativity to her performances, allowing her to experiment, interpret, and express in ways she had not imagined before. One afternoon, while practicing a new piece, she paused and reflected on her journey from that first humiliating audition to the present day. The tears, the frustration, the doubt, all of it had led to growth and self-discovery. She realized that the challenges she had faced were not obstacles to avoid but essential parts of the journey that shaped her character and abilities. This understanding brought a sense of peace and accomplishment that surpassed any applause or recognition. She began to set new goals, not just for performance, but for personal growth and mastery. She challenged herself to learn more complex compositions, to perform in new venues, and to push the boundaries of her expression. Each goal was approached with the same focus, dedication, and resilience that had carried her through her earlier trials. The joy of striving, learning, and improving became a central part of her life, a source of satisfaction and motivation. The experience also taught her humility and empathy. She became more aware of the struggles of others, understanding that everyone faced challenges and moments of self-doubt. She approached her relationships with peers and younger students with patience and encouragement, offering support without judgment. Her own journey had shown her the value of compassion, the importance of lifting others as she continued to rise. As months passed, she continued to perform, practice, and mentor, each day reinforcing the lessons she had learned. The memory of public humiliation became a distant but powerful motivator, reminding her of her resilience and capacity for growth. She had transformed fear into strength, criticism into motivation, and doubt into determination. Every performance, every practice session, every interaction with fellow musicians carried the imprint of her journey and the wisdom it had given her. Looking back, she realized that the most important achievement was not the applause, the accolades, or even the successful performance of the challenging piece. It was the transformation within herself, the courage she had discovered, the confidence she had built, and the love of music that had deepened. She understood that true mastery and fulfillment came not from perfection, but from the willingness to face challenges, to persevere, and to embrace the journey of growth and expression. Her story became a source of inspiration, not only within her music community but also among friends, family, and peers. It reminded everyone that resilience, dedication, and self-belief could overcome fear, criticism, and setbacks. She had turned humiliation into triumph, weakness into strength, and doubt into confidence. Her journey was a testament to the power of perseverance and the human capacity to grow through adversity. In the quiet moments, when she sat at the piano alone, she felt a sense of peace and fulfillment. She played for the joy of music, for the connection it brought with herself and others, and for the reminder of how far she had come. Each note carried not only melody, but also the story of struggle, determination, and triumph. The music had become a mirror of her journey, reflecting growth, resilience, and the courage to face life's challenges with heart and passion. She knew that more challenges would come, more pieces would demand mastery, and more moments of doubt would test her. But she was no longer afraid. She had learned to embrace the journey, to trust in her abilities, and to find strength in perseverance. Music was no longer just a talent or a skill. It was a companion, a teacher, and a reflection of her spirit. She had discovered that the greatest victories were not only in applause and recognition but in the courage to face fear, the resilience to rise after setbacks, and the joy of expressing oneself fully. And so, she continued to play, to learn, and to grow, carrying with her the lessons of the past, the confidence of her achievements, and the unending passion for music that had guided her from the very beginning. Her journey, though marked by challenges, had led to triumph, and she knew that every note she played was a testament to the power of perseverance, dedication, and the human spirit.